Yeah, it's just a happy accident for Benny. Still, at this point, just 20,000 little accidents. I mean, it's more than 20,000, but like, it seemingly keeps happening, dude. I don't know how. We're really trying to find out who's doing this, you know? All right, let's watch Benny Morris go toe-to-toe with the man, the myth, the legend, Norm Finkelstein.
Lives. Show me the gas chambers.
He spoke about objectivity or something. The man is a total Hamas propagandist.
Fully one half of Israeli Jews believe that Israel should conduct a genocide in Gaza.
That is a lie.
I know, Benny, everybody's lying.
We are looking at the Holocaust live on 4K screens, and our politicians, our human rights organizations feel helpless.
It may not be the death of absolutely everybody, but it means killing a lot of Palestinians and kicking the rest out of the area. And
I can't believe Piers did not bring a sex pest to this conversation. This meeting of intellectual giants could only be made better if you were to bring in a guy who's going to summarize the most damning quotes from a Wikipedia article he read, okay?
Is a genocide.
A genocide is something which is carried out systematically. That's not what...
Yeah, Benny Morris, by the way, even if Benny Morris, who is a horrible monster, but even he, if I'm not mistaken, as recently as like a couple of weeks ago, was like, we are in the beginning stages of maybe some war crimes taking place. So, you know... He is, after all, the guy who famously uncovered the planned ethnic cleansing campaign of the early Zionist brigades, and then said it was awesome and good, and it had to be done.
What is happening? They may even have a genocidal mentality, but they do not control government policy. That's done by the generals, and unfortunately, in my mind, by a man called Netanyahu, who's totally corrupt and incompetent.
See, even Benny's hitting the liberal Zionist exit ramp. Oh my God. Even if they're being genocidal in their statements, I mean, that's just, you know, it starts at 13. Okay, yeah. All right, let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Benny Morris and Norm.
The war, Professor Norman Finkelstein and Benny Morris, Israeli historian. Well, welcome to both of you. Benny Morris, my main question right now for Benjamin Netanyahu, I put it to him on X directly. And I said, if you're doing everything by the book and everything is justified and everything is legal and you're not committing any war crimes or any of these things, I simply asked him one simple question. If you're doing nothing wrong, let international journalists go in and see for themselves.
Piers, are you Hamas? Why you not trust Israel? Why you no trust Israel? Journalist? More Hamas? Is that what you want? More Hamas? Anti-Semitism.
And I think it is completely shameful that the Israeli government continues to stop international journalists from doing their job. And it's down to the individual risk assessment will be by the journalists and their companies. You know, it was put to me on 2-3 days ago by an IDF member that somehow this has been done for the safety of the journalists. It's not. It's complete nonsense. And that's not down to the Israeli government anyway to make that call. I mean, do you at least accept that it is wrong that journalists are not allowed in there?
I completely agree with you, Piers. The government has made a terrible mistake in not allowing journalists in, and whoever dies...
By the way, the government's made a terrible mistake not allowing journalists in because we could have killed more of these annoying journalists. You know what I mean?
There dies, but they should have allowed them in. But I would like to make a comment about what your previous guest was saying. He said he spoke about objectivity or something. The man is a total Hamas propagandist. Half the things he said were outright lies.
Dude, give it like a couple more months. Piers is going to be talking about glory to the martyrs, okay? Give it a couple more months. Piers is a horrible stenographer for the imperial interests of all of these Western nations, but he also is a content man first and foremost. And now, as an independent content man, he's a room reader. And as a room reader, even he recognized, the tides have shifted. He came out and apologized to Mehdi Hasan and said it is a genocide. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm so wrong. I was so wrong. And now he is slowly letting his opinion be known that it is a genocide. I suspect that he will still take the approach of like, well, it's a genocide, but no one else should resist to it. Something along those lines, which will be still very annoying. Okay. Having said that, give it a couple more months and he'll be raising the Al-Aqsa flood banner, okay, behind him.
Lots of doctors have been abducted and have disappeared is total nonsense. I know of 1 or 2 cases of doctors who were taken to an Israeli detention center. What happened to them afterwards, I don't know. I don't think they've been killed. I think
it's just kidnapping. It's just kidnapping. Piers, it's just kidnapping. Doctors of Hamas.
They are under arrest for whatever reason. But
so they could have been abducted.
Many doctors have been.
You're basically agreeing with him, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that he talked about.
You just said know of some doctors who were detained. You have no idea what happened to them.
I know of 1 or 2
but
doctors.
You're confirming his story.
No, I'm not. I'm confirming a small part of what is true. The rest.
God, it's so interesting seeing him apply the same annoying techniques for once to the correct side. Okay, like every time I've been on this dude's show, he would gum up the works. I could not get a single statement in edgewise before doing 10 Am Israel highs and 10 Hamas condemnations. You know what I mean? And now he is Hamas. Piers, you are Hamas now. He's one dude, I swear to God, if before next month ends, Piers Morgan is going to demand condemnations of the state of Israel. Okay? I'm calling it. He's going to be like, do you condemn the actions of the Israeli state? I mean, he's basically doing that without those words, for the record. This was your viral clip from October 2023 with Piers. Yeah. Just so you understand, a lot of people have yelled at me over the course of these past year and a half. Over the course of the past year and a half, a lot of people have yelled at me. This was my position on October 2023.
Allowed to defend itself from the worst terror attack since 9/11. If their mission now is to get rid of Hamas, then what they are doing is consistent with that, isn't it?
No, you said Israel has a right to defend itself. Absolutely zero people think that this is a ridiculous statement. However, how Israel is defending itself is collective punishment. Collective punishment in the form of depriving 2.2 million people of electricity, of water, of food, 51 people dying in the West Bank where, there is no Hamas in the West Bank, killing 3,480 Palestinians so far in Gaza, 1,000 plus children, 22 hospitals being bombed. These are horrifying crimes that you would openly say are horrifying and unjustifiable when Russia does it, but when Israel does it, Israel has a right to defend itself. This is identical to the same talking points that I've heard from every Israeli administration official. It's the same thing that I've heard from everyone else in the media. You might have been against the Iraq war, but you're using that for evil, in my opinion, at this point, if you are not sitting here and condemning those war crimes, those acts of violence, those acts of collective punishment.
The other one that's like my famous clip of me yelling at the pink-haired twink is also me yelling at liberal Zionists who try to both sides of genocide. A lot of people forget, but that was me yelling at a person who was trying to both sides of genocide. I was like, what the fuck do you mean both sides are in the wrong here? Like, what are you talking about? There's no both sides. Shut the fuck up. You don't know anything. Can we watch that clip quickly? Where I'm trying to find it. Hold on. Is this it?
Listen to what I'm saying, and you will understand perhaps what I'm trying to imply here.
That's very patronizing.
Utilizing the hostages. Yeah, I am being patronizing. I don't know who the f you are, and you're over here chirping all the way from London about Palestine and doing a both sides are fine type bullshit where you're talking about how you want to free Palestine, but also simultaneously, both sides got a lot going on. Shut the f up. You don't know anything, okay? Listen to...
I was so mad. I like that needs cleanup, okay? But I was so mad that I just couldn't. Like I couldn't like get the words out correctly. The girl one is better.
Everyone wants to criticize the IDF's response, but nobody wants to tell me what should Israel be doing to retaliate October 7th, eradicate Hamas from preventing another October 7th, and bring the hostages home.
I have an idea.
Do you have a solution?
I have an idea.
I also
How
have
about
an
not killing the
answer.
hostages?
I have an answer.
Thank you for proving my point.
It's called the
Yes,
dissolution
Hasan.
of the apartheid regime. Dissolve the apartheid regime.
So what would you like to
allow
see happen,
Palestinians
Hasan?
breathing room. Do you not understand the English language?
We're
Dissolve
delayed.
the
It's
apartheid
delayed.
regime.
You need a Xanax, first of all. You need a Xanax. They had a chance to rebuild.
You need a Xanax. You need a Xanax first of all. Shut the f up. I have maintained the same position over and over again, but like, while there is no moral equivalence between Hamas and Israel, Hamas is clearly on the right side and Israel is clearly on the wrong side. Hamas is a group of orphaned soldiers that were born out of the Israeli occupation. Okay, whereas Israel is the most powerful nation in the region, backed by the most powerful nation on the planet with nuclear arms, and is currently doing a genocide. Imagine if I was rocking the Al-Qassam Brigade's banner on my head while talking on Piers Morgan. I would go to prison, okay? But she gets to wear the IDF dog tags. How come she gets to wear the IDF dog tags? Those ugly ass dog tags. I hate them. They're so large too.
But they spent the last 15 plus years crying that they don't have enough land because there is never enough land for them instead of rebuilding civilization.
Has
just build
not
terrorist
allowed
tunnels to keep hostages in.
Palestinians to have a nation state that they deserve by international law since the inception of the Israeli nation state. The fact that you brought up the last 15 years as Palestinians crying is disgusting.
Oh, I have one more question.
You are a disgusting little monster who thinks that not offering contiguity to the Palestinians in the form of a state is just simply Palestinians crying.
You need the Xanax. That's the same chick that pursued I Show Speed. And then I Show Speed was like, oh, she works for the Israeli state, free Palestine, and then unfollowed her.
It's a lie, as is a large part of what he's saying. Had Israel wanted to kill all the Palestinians, that's what genocide.
She recently went on Tim Pool and said she thought you were 21 years old. Wait, what?
How is he, like 30?
Oh, so he's not that young. I thought he was
I don't
like
know how
20.
old he is.
Yeah, I swear to you, I thought he was 21.
How old is he?
Because that's how he acts.
No, he's not 21.
I literally thought he was 20.
He's not 21. This guy is a Hasanabi head, dude. My biggest dick rider of all time. That's the one, right? That's the one who's like constantly talking about me on the Tim Pool show.
21.
I literally thought he was 20. He looks like a... Never mind. I'm not even going to start.
Oh, what was she going to say? Hey, yo! Listen, this is why I always say there's one thing you can't deny. All my haters, they all hit the same bar. Stupid, sexy Hasan. Oh, I hate him. I hate how hot he is. Oh, he just looks a certain way that gets me going. Oh. He's so young and hot.
Let's get his actual
Giving him
age.
too much attention.
We're giving this guy a big shout. He's getting big promotion here on TikTok.
Yes, seriously.
Yeah. Oh my God. All 63,000 of these views, man. Thank you, Tim. All right.
That actually means there would have been many, many, many more deaths in Gaza. Each time Israel launches an air raid, we hear of the Palestinians saying 24 people have died, 30 people have died, and I'm sure many of them are civilians, but I'm also sure that the Air Force going in against these targets is attacking Hamasniks. We never hear from the Hamas how many of their people are being killed in these strikes. All we hear about and all we see on television is dead babies and dead women. They never show grown male, army-aged males being taken out of these ruins. And the Hamas uses these things systematically, the schools, the hospitals, various so-called safe compounds to hide in.
But out of interest, all right, but Benny Morris, when you hear someone like Smodrich last week, talking about the campaign to just clear everybody out.
He's disgusting. You don't have to convince me. He's disgusting.
Right, but so my question for you, but my question for you though is this. All right, he's disgusting. What he said was disgusting.
Yes.
But what he said was also genocidal. Whereas you do not believe it's genocide that's going on, he clearly is talking in a way which made me believe that actually maybe the intention is genocide. It may not be the death of absolutely everybody, but it means killing a lot of Palestinians and kicking the rest out of the area. And that is a genocide.
Yeah, Piers. Guys, Piers is on the right side of history now, okay? Forget about all the stuff that he said before. I mean, that is his goal. He's trying to do that. He's Hamas now.
Genocide is something which is top-down government policy and carried out systematically. That's not what is happening. He is definitely, some of his speeches are genocidal. I don't know what he means exactly. And there are other ministers who speak like him, and they shouldn't be doing that. And they may even have a genocidal mentality, but they do not control government policy, and they do not control what the army is doing. That's done by the generals, and unfortunately, in my mind, by a man called Netanyahu, who's totally corrupt and incompetent.
Yeah, okay, we bring in Norman Finkelstein.
It's got nothing to do with, but it's got nothing to do with genocide.
Well, I think you're getting perilously close.
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu might be saying genocidal statements, but and all these other politicians in the government might be saying genocidal statements, and that Israel might be doing war crimes that might be considered a genocide, but don't say it's a genocide. It's not a genocide. What is it then, man? You basically spelled it out. Can you imagine doing the ICJ prosecution like this? Listen, you don't get it. It walks like a duck. It quacks like a duck. I mean, it's just not. Just take my word for it. It's not.
To agreeing with me, Norman Finkelstein. I mean, the bottom line is, if it sounds from the rhetoric like a genocide, if the actions on the ground are becoming increasingly genocidal, if there's no other plan being put out there for what happens to Palestinian people other than many more will die and the rest will be thrown out of Gaza, I don't know what else you end up calling this. And, I listened to that doctor. I didn't hear somebody that I felt was a Hamas sympathizer or propagandist. He went out of his way to say he wasn't.
He's just a liar. He's a liar.
Well, he's a liar who's lost 78 members of his family. So, I mean, Norman Finkelstein.
Maybe it's true, and I agree, and I feel sorry for him, but they're caught up in the bad situation where Hamas controls the population and is willing to sacrifice as many civilians as they can to win world support.
Well, which is exactly what Israel's also seems like they're prepared to sacrifice. Norman Finkelstein.
Well, thank you for having me on the program, and I hope that you'll hear me out. Is it a genocide? Well, as you know, Piers, from the first time I appeared on your program many months ago, I said it was a genocide. I said it was perfectly obvious when October 9th, the then Defense Minister Galon said, we're not going to allow in any food, fuel, water, or electricity. Well, for a hermetically sealed population, that's a genocide. When the head of state, Mr. Netanyahu, compared the current situation with Amalek and invoked the biblical reference, it was clear, as the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem put it, that he was talking about genocide. Now, in the 19 months that have elapsed, there have been adjustments in Israeli policy due to external pressure. That's called politics. So when the external pressures escalated, they had to diminish the genocide. And then beginning roughly when Kamala Harris was nominated for president in the United States, and all the cameras switched to the American election, Mr. Netanyahu, who's very sensitive to and knowledgeable of the American media, he then escalated the genocidal assault on Gaza again. And then, as you remember, because I did several programs with you at that time, as you'll remember, every day there was another massacre. There were so many massacres, it was impossible to keep count, and it was impossible to remember. Now, again, there was some lessening.
The first massacre, which was launched by Hamas.
Okay. I've not forgotten it, Benny. But you have to remember manners. I'll remember the massacres, and you remember manners. I'm speaking now. So, there were times when Israel, as I said, escalated the genocide and then diminished the genocide. Now, let's talk about the responsibility and the mindset. You've mentioned Mr. Smotrich. I mentioned Mr. Netanyahu. There was also several others whose names have constantly come up. Obviously, Defense Minister Gallant, who was indicted along with Prime Minister Netanyahu by the International Criminal Court. But it's not just the leadership. It's not just the leadership. The most recent poll showed that fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews, we're talking now about the population, fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews believe that Israel should conduct a genocide in Gaza. That's what the poll result showed. 82%.
That's a lie. That is a lie.
I know, Benny, everybody's lying.
There's
but
never been a
finish.
Poll about supporting genocide. This is nonsense. You're purveying lies.
Okay. Okay, Benny.
Is that poll, Norman? What is that poll? What is that poll, Norman? It seems a very important poll. What is that poll you're referring to?
It was a university, if my memory is correct, it was a University of Pennsylvania poll. It was reported everywhere. Benny Morris knows about the poll.
No, it wasn't UPenn. But it was also conducted by, I think it was Pennsylvania State. That's number one. And secondly, the poll was conducted by a reputable Israeli polling organization that conducts all of the Israeli polls. It is a lie. Beta Wolf. It is a lie. No, you can't say it's a lie. You can say that the questioning, the line of questioning was different than normal polls because it's true. The question directly asked, like, should they ethnically cleanse like Amalek? Okay. The verbiage was surely not, do you support genocide, right? No, it was. It was worse than that. A total of 82. Why is it Al-Quds the only? Just send me another goddamn website, dude. Holy, you guys are trying to get me goddamn banned. The poll questions were directional. You can criticize the way that they asked these questions, but it wasn't in an effort to trick. There's nothing wrong with Al-Quds. There's nothing wrong with Al-Quds. It's just that, like, they have this graphic and then people are going to be like, oh, you're being anti-Semitic. Shut the fuck up. The poll that was conducted by not just Pennsylvania State University, but it was conducted by a reputable Israeli polling organization. Okay. And not only that, but also, and I don't like that everyone keeps saying like, oh, Haaretz only wrote it in Hebrew. Oh, geocartography. Yeah. Israeli polling firm Geocartography on behalf of Penn State University. And the questions were directed as such. 47% of Israeli Jews answered yes to the question. Do you support the claim that the Israeli army is in conquering an enemy city should act in a manner similar to the way Israelites did when they conquered Jericho under the leadership of Joshua, i.e., to kill all its inhabitants? The reference is to the biblical account of the conquest of Jericho. 47% of Israeli Jews answered yes to that question.
He's fully informed of the poll, But he's doing
It's a
his
lie.
job as an official Israeli
No, I have
propagandist.
no job. I don't
know,
like
Benny.
this. I don't like this government.
Benny,
I'm not their spokesman.
You've
but you
reduced
shouldn't
yourself.
lie.
You've reduced yourself, Mr. Benny. You've reduced yourself to the level of a Holocaust denier. It's a real shame that you have sunk so low. But allow me to continue. The polls show that 82% of Israeli Jews, 82% support a forced expulsion from Gaza.
That's not
of
the same
entire
as genocide.
population.
That may be true.
Then,
that may be true, but that's not.
Dude, Benny Morris is such a unique figure because he always has this like incredible, he'll take like an incredible claim that the average person would look at and go, this is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my entire life. What are you saying? And he'll be like, yeah, this happened, but it's good and it must happen. Like, I've never met someone who is this delusional to the way he is received by others. He'll just be like, listen, you don't understand. Yeah, 82% of Israeli Jews want permanent ethnic cleansing. Yeah, but that's not genocide, you know? That is psychotic. No care or consideration for how that looks at all.
Genocide.
Where did the polls say that? What? Benny is right. They didn't say I support the genocide of Pallies. Beta Wolf, you are a 44-month subscriber. The wording I already gave you. You heard the wording and you went, oh, it's not the same. Like, dude, it literally says, should they kill all of the inhabitants of an enemy city? What do you think the enemy city is? Why do you think the invocation of the word Amalek is significant and is being used in the slightly autistic with it? No, dude, this is not about autism. This is just being either obsessively obtuse. No, this isn't right after October 7th. Why are you trying to defend it? No, this poll was conducted recently. What the is going on? Yeah, this was the article that was written. Yes, the transfer of 82% of Jews yes, the transfer. 82% of Jews in Israel favor deporting Gaza residents. Okay. The poll was conducted in the last couple of months. Or in the last couple of weeks, sorry.
Yeah.
That's not genocide. What you said before about genocide is total nonsense. Total nonsense.
Piers, you're going to have to ask Benny Morris to please allow me to speak.
Well, Benny, I will let you respond to this.
You're taking up all the time, though.
Yeah, Norman, you must give him a chance to respond.
Okay, I will finish. I will finish. Then one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel described Israeli soldiers as killing children as a hobby in Gaza. Now, yes, he took it back. He took it back after he came under ferocious attack. But he himself acknowledged, when I debated Mr. Morris about a year ago, and I said that Israel targets children, he laughed. He thought it was such a funny remark by me.
It's absolute
I'm wondering, after the foreign doctors in Gaza,
Dude, 19 months of unlimited child murder, and this animal is still like, it's not true. It's not true. Israel does not target children. Like, what do you mean, bro? What, they just like accidentally perish? Like, what the are you talking about? How many goddamn children have we seen with their like skull completely taken out by an Israeli rocket or a bullet?
After the foreign doctors in Gaza attested that the children were being shot in the head and the chest, and when one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel said that the Israeli soldiers kill children
I must let Benny respond, Norman. I must let Benny respond. Benny.
There has never been a poll asking Israelis whether they support genocide. This is a total lie, and the 50% figure is also something completely out of Norman Finkelstein's imagination, his twisted mind, actually. There is no targeting of children deliberately, and what this politician...
Yeah, it's just a happy accident for Benny, still, at this point. Just 20,000 little accidents. I mean, it's more than 20,000, but like, it seemingly keeps happening, dude. I don't know how. We're really trying to find out who's doing this, you know? Oh. I sometimes think to myself, is it because like you're so invested in this false reality that Israel is a force for good because you live there and it's so important to you that you have to defend its honor like this? And a big part of that is just simply lying to yourself? Or is it because you are completely aware of what Israel is doing and you like what Israel is doing, but you at least understand that it's indefensible in the global stage? So therefore, you have to willingly lie. It really doesn't matter what the motives are here, because you're still doing genocide denial. You're still doing Holocaust denial. And therefore, under normal circumstances, you would be punished. Like, what Benny Morris is doing, ironically enough, is illegal in Israel, and it is illegal in the UK. Of course, it's illegal in Israel and illegal in the UK only for the original Holocaust, right? Not the one that's currently happening. The one that's currently happening is not yet illegal to deny.
Said, and he's actually a very clever politician and usually tells things straight, and the truth was a slip of the tongue. And he said, I made a mistake. I said the wrong thing and I shouldn't have used that phrase. Stupid phrase. Israeli soldiers do not target, as a rule, children. There may be, and I'm sure there are and have been, war crimes committed by Israeli soldiers and pilots, perhaps, in this war in the course of 19 months. But I don't think we should forget that Hamas is a homicidal, a homophobic, misogynist, totalitarian organization which tried to kill as many Israelis as they could, most of them civilians.
Nothing. There's nothing. All you got is, remember October 7. October 7. October 7. That's all he's got. Totalitarian. They don't even have a state, nor a standing military. What do you mean?
August, and what befell Gaza as a result is revenge for that attack by the Hamas. And the Hamas said they would do the same thing again if they are revived and resuscitated as a leading organization in the Gaza Strip. And I think that's the objective of the Israeli army, to end Hamas rule and to end the Hamas as an organization in the Gaza Strip. And anybody normal who doesn't support Islamists...
Yeah. Hamas is misogynistic, which is why we have to kill all of the women in Palestine to liberate them from the misogynistic throes of Hamas.
Doesn't support anti-Semitism, doesn't support misogyny, doesn't support homophobia, should be against Hamas, which Norman Finkelstein apparently isn't.
Yeah, but I don't hear people supporting Hamas certainly in mainstream media or anywhere else. Everyone's of a unanimity that what they did was unconscionable and they should be held to account. The problem is that the strategy that the Israeli government
want to do.
Yes, I heard.
They still want to do and say they want to do.
Benny, let's just assume, because they said it themselves, in fact, the spokesman said it after October the 7th, that if they can do it again and again, they will. So they want to get rid of all the Jews in Israel. Okay, that is Hamas.
And of the state of Israel. And of the state of Israel.
But the problem is, as I've always said from the start of this, what is a proportional response to what happened?
Finkelstein about to be like, Mr. Benny, I too do not entertain transgender ideology like Hamas. No identity politics, Mr. Benny. You are a fantastic moron. I've loved Norm Finkelstein so much. Oh God, he is what a incredible person, dude. Yes, Norm himself is Mr. Anti-Identity Politics. But he's also like 90 years old.
Happened, and what is the end game? What does Israel actually want at the end of this? And I'm beginning to think they don't have any plan at all. That actually what they're hoping is that they can pursue the line of many of the more right-wing.
Who's anti-Paul? Oh, he's transphobic, yes. Yes, Norm Finkelstein is transphobic. I don't give a shit. I thought everybody knew that already. He's also pro-Russia. I don't give a fuck. I mean, you clearly do. What? No, I don't care. I don't care what the opinions of a 90-year-old man is beyond his focus. His academic focus is on one issue and one issue only. Okay? Otherwise, you wouldn't make it a point to make it clear he's transphobic. No, I am a normal human being who understands that a 90-year-old man is probably not going to have, especially a 90-year-old stubborn man, is not going to have the same opinions as you. All I'm saying is clearly you care about trans issues, so saying that you don't care is annoying and reductive. No, I don't care. I do not care that Norm Finkelstein is transphobic. Like, have you talked to your grandparents? Have you had a conversation with your grandparents? Yeah. Not only is it inconsequential in this conversation, but like there are people who have lived for far too long on this planet and have developed certain positions that is impossible to shake them from. And the best your expectations should be of them is to not get in the way, you know, not get in the way of social change and also not constantly be annoying. Like I'm sure there's trans chatters in here that can't get their grandparents to be understanding of trans people. You know what I mean? Check my link. Norm has changed. Wait, really? Norm Finkelstein has mind blown by identity politics founder Barbara Smith. Damn. My mistake. He's also, I guess, pro-trans now. Trans chatter here. My 87-year-old grandfather is also transphobic. Yeah, some of us cut those family off from our lives. I'm lucky my 88-year-old mom is still supportive of my trans butt. Oh, I thought you meant trans people need to get out of the way. I'm so stupid. No, old people who have these kinds of opinions need to get out of the way. It's fine. Like it's basically about like managing the situation, right? And if the best you're going to get is for them to be like somewhat understanding, or at the very least, like to get them to stop talking about this shit and shift their attention away to other priorities, then great. I'll take that success. I still have to boy mode when traveling to my grandparents' town 6 years into it. Yeah. Like, if you were to ask me, do I care about transphobia being, the norm in society? Of course I do. But the way to tackle that is not by getting 95-year-olds. Like, that is perhaps the least consequential in society for maintaining transphobic opinions. You know what I mean? I would rather make sure that children are not hateful, right? Like, even if they also, too, have the brain functions of a 95-year-old, because children are going to grow up to be adults. Like, they are literally, just let him do it. You know what I mean? It's like when the doctor tells your grandparents, like, oh, he wants to smoke cigarettes, let him smoke cigarettes. He's 99 years old. Like, that's what the doctor told my grandfather, okay, before he passed away. Because my parents were like, oh, you have to be more healthy. You have to be more healthy. I was like 99, okay? And basically the doctor was like, dude, if he wants to smoke cigarettes, let him smoke cigarettes. He has lived for 99 years, dude. What are you talking about? Let the man smoke some bogues, right? And that's kind of the whole point with even like transphobia as well. If you're 90 years old and you're like transphobic, it's like the best you can do is just get them to I guess, not talk about it all the time, you know? Yeah. Also, clearly, if you're 99 and like, and chiefing some darts, okay, some lung darts for 99 goddamn years, you probably shouldn't take the cigarette away from him. He might die if you take the cigarette away. Yeah, 91-year-old grandma dead named me every day until she died. I hated it. She was also racist. She was unreasonable. Some old people will listen to reason and still learn. I agree. I'm just saying it's probably at a certain point better to just like avoid them is what I mean. Because like 91 years old, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of hard. And also like you're wasting your time is what I mean. Like self-preservation is good in this situation. All right, let's keep going.
Members of that cabinet. Maybe Netanyahu himself now has been introduced into this because he has no incentive to end the war, because the moment it ends, he'll be held accountable for allowing October the 7th to happen in the first place, which was hugely unpopular for him and the Poles with the Israeli people. But second,
damn, Piers is even talking about how October 7th, he allowed it to happen.
He's facing corruption charges in a criminal court the moment this is all over. There is no incentive for him to end it. And so this carries on and on with more and more Palestinians being killed. And all right, you might have a belief that the IDF never deliberately target children, but they are deliberately and relentlessly targeting civilian areas in their estimation, going after Hamas. But in the process, they know they are going to kill on a daily basis dozens, if not hundreds, of innocent people as well. And that's been going on now week after week, month after month. And at some point, you surely have to concede that this strategy is not working. It's making Israel global pariahs. It's making Israel global pariahs. There is no evidence that Hamas is being dismantled. In fact, the opposite appears to be happening.
Oh, no. No, not Israel. Why you not like Israel? You say Israel? Pariah? What does this word mean? Pariah? Why you say? Why you not like Israel? No politic here. Israel number one. No politic here. Do you think Piers is a bellwether of big media? Kind of. I mean, he's independent right now, so that's why he's like probably taking a more aggro tone.
Where for every Hamas terrorist,
I just think he's paid by Hamas. That's what I think. I think Abu Obaida got Piers's number and got access to his crypto wallet and has just been sending him Qatari money like weekly. Clearly, that's what happened.
Is killed. They're apparently replacing them with multiple more people who share that ideology. The hostages are not being released. God knows how many of those hostages may be killed now with these intensifying airstrikes.
No,
Israel now says it's launching.
Can I correct
Israel
you?
Now said, well, let me finish.
About the
Israel now says it's launching a massive new attack. Well, okay, bully for Israel, but actually none of this seems to be working. And so at some point,
can I correct
I
you?
say enough. Yes.
Why you bully Israel?
Correct me.
Okay, I understood that. Can I correct you on one small point? The Hamas kidnapped 251 hostages, most of them Israelis, some of them Nepalese, some of them Thai, on the 7th of October 2023. Of those, 177 were actually released as a result of the Israeli counteroffensive in interim arrangements.
Well, they were released by diplomacy, actually. They were released through diplomacy.
But the Israeli military pressure is what persuaded the Hamas, because they also.
So why is it not working now? Why isn't it working?
Interesting, because on October 17th, I think, Hamas released a message to the Israeli envoys saying, as long as Israel does not invade the Gaza Strip, we will release all hostages. Israel instantly denied this. Just something strange. Just something strange to think about. October 17th, 2023, by the way.
Now.
It will work. I don't know. Firstly, there's only 20 alive Israeli hostages left in Hamas.
Genuine question. How do you apply your standards of charitability when dealing with people like Piers Morgan, who actively sold the genocide, but then has maybe come around and is now on the right side? Maybe. Do you still extend that same charitability to people who were genocidaires turned anti-Israel? I mean, it's case by case. Like, I would, like, remember that one soldier that Ombin Beyachad was parading around, who literally did like hundreds of days of genocide in Gaza and then turned around and was like, oh, I don't want to go back anymore. I'm actually now a conscientious objector. And it's like, bro, you literally did the genocide. Like, I don't want to say what I think he should do. And it's not like, oh, I'm not like doing a suicide joke or whatever. I don't want to say what I think he should do. But like, you know, like, I feel like if you've done it for 200 days, like, you go back. You don't have to quit at that point, and, you know, go back and maybe do something else when you're there. You know what I mean? Like, you have the military training. I don't know what else to say, right? You have the arms, you have the military training. Like, you are not the same as like a 17-year-old who's like, I'm not going to serve in the IDF. You know what I mean? You're a whole ass adult, you know? Stuff like this happened all the time, okay? All the time. And yeah, you have the trust of your fellows. Like, what do you mean? Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, for someone like Piers Morgan, it's different, right? So for someone like Piers Morgan, it's different. Because, like, this is what he does. His entire role here is to basically turn around and either propagandize in the direction of Israel or against Israel. And I am skeptical, but I also treat him as I'm skeptical, but I also treat this as like a positive development, if that makes sense. Right? You're going to ruin my afternoon, trees, relax. I didn't say anything that's like f***ed up, chatters. And I don't think people understood what I was saying. I wasn't saying like, oh, kill yourself or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. That wasn't the point. I was saying something different. But I can't say, you know, maybe organize amongst your other the fellow soldiers that have participated in this and maybe feel the same way as you do. You know what I mean? Like, there's only so much I can say. This is a foreign nation's military, but it's not treated as a foreign nation's military. If I was talking about this in America, like doing an officer's mutiny, for example, like advocating for a coup within the American Defense Department is not something that would get me in trouble, all right? Even as a joke, which is what I'm saying. I'm saying that as a joke, okay? But if you were to say that, about the Russian military, people would love that. People probably demand it all the time. But if you were to say that about the IDF, all of a sudden, 19 months into a genocide, everybody gets in their feelings, you know? Are you saying do a reverse Pat Tillman? Low key, it's not even a reverse Pat Tillman. There's so many examples of this throughout the Vietnam War. That's all I'm going to say about this. There are a lot of examples of after decades of conquest and death and destruction, there were a lot of people who were very frustrated, you know? Also, yeah, partisans have existed throughout history. Jewish partisans played a formative role, you know? And not even just Jewish partisans, but like partisans in the resistance in Vichy France, or partisans in Italy against the fascist Mussolini government. Like, this part, like what I'm describing right here, is simply an accurate assessment of historical events that unfolded throughout historic periods of struggle against fascism. Okay? That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is ciao bella ciao is what I'm saying. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Partisans have existed throughout history. Okay? Yes, Yugoslavian partisans as well. I have no clue what little bro is trying to say. Then Google it, okay? There have been historic periods of struggle against historic fascism, and there were plenty of fucking people within the in-group that was a part of the fascist in-group that actually engaged in armed struggle against the fascist entity, okay? All I'm saying is look it up on Google. Look up what has happened in history, throughout history, on Google, okay? Google it. Stop trying to get me to spell shit out.
Must hands. I do believe that the government is incompetent in.
We don't know that. We know there are over 50. Over 50 are not accounted for.
No, we know there's 20 live ones and assumed 38 dead ones. That's what the Israeli
but nobody
intelligence
knows for sure.
knows. Okay, nobody knows for sure. The government now, which was incompetent and I think incompetently managed this war, that's why it stretched out for so long. Though don't forget, we also had a war with Iran and with Hezbollah, and we continue to have a war with the Houthis from Yemen. So it's not just been Israel focusing only on Gaza. But
but in the war, if I may say, before I go back, hang on.
He's like, listen, you don't understand. Israel's got ambitions everywhere. Ambitions everywhere. There's so much free real estate just sitting there, you know?
Before I go back to Norman, with the war with Hezbollah, that was a scenario where Israel, in terms of military operation, brilliantly targeted 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists in a way that begs the question, why could they not have...
Oh, okay. Suck my dick, Piers. The beeper pager attacks was a severe violation of international norms and international rules of conflict. You cannot booby trap things. You cannot intercept normal supply lines by which commerce is normal supply lines by which commerce happens, and disrupt those normal supply lines at the behest of creating an incredibly sophisticated large-scale terror attack. This is yet another example of Israel violating the rule-based international order in such a spectacular fashion that it potentially could open up the floodgates if America's adversaries or anyone else's adversaries, for example, has the same approach. It's insane to me that it has gotten this much positive coverage in Western news. It is insane to me. And the very fact that Israel was able to do that when it also operates Pegasus makes you wonder about what level of Israeli surveillance is seen as like appropriate and sophisticated by the likes of Piers Morgan. Imagine if they did that to like American first responders one day, you know? Imagine if your iPhone just exploded and it killed your daughter because you talk shit about Israel. It is crazy.
Have done a similar operation on Hamas. And I've heard all the excuses and explanations and arguments. But in one case, Israel has now, since October the 7th, 2023, just launched endless strikes and assaults on civilian populations in Gaza, killing, we don't know how many, but we know it's many tens of thousands, including over 20,000 children in a population with 50% under 18.
This is why what I always said post October 7 was the solution is to dissolve the apartheid. Because the reason why October 7 happened is because of the occupation and apartheid. Like, there's no world in which, like, oh, there's a sophisticated way to do these things. Like, what do you mean? Fuck that. Yeah, the most sophisticated way to do this would be to dissolve the apartheid. That's it. That's the main problem here. October 7 is born out of the frustration and the anger and resentment, born out of the unlimited violence that Palestinians are subjected to. That's it. They didn't just like materialize. They didn't just come out of the womb and we're like, oh my God, I can't wait to kill Israelis. Like, or sorry, not even Israelis. Sorry. I can't wait to kill Jews. I hate Jews. Like, that's not how this works. That's not how this happened.
And in their offensive against Hezbollah, which was incredibly successful, they targeted 3,000 terrorists with pages, which have got explosives in. You know, there's a massive difference in the way that Israel's gone about these two counter-terrorist operations, as they would put it. And I would argue the way they went...
Doc, what are you talking about? Israel did Gaza shit to fucking Beirut as well. Part of the reason why they did the pager attack before they did the Beirut Gaza equivalent was because they wanted to literally use their last ditch effort before they were outed, and then it accelerated the bombing campaign because Like, if he's mad about Gaza, he should be really pissed off about Beirut. Like, what are we talking about? Did we forget what Israel did in Beirut? Like, did we just forget that Israel also Gaza-fied southern Lebanon? The pager attack was an act of terror, but it was the opening salvo. And a part of the reason why they did that was because they wanted to cause as much chaos and confusion as possible within the ranks of Hezbollah so that they could do an endless amount of bombing in Lebanon without any sort of defense against it whatsoever, without any serious repercussions. That was the success. Because under normal circumstances, if Hezbollah still had its command structure, okay, and by the way, they killed a bunch of civilians in the process too. They literally attacked first responders that were using those pagers. They attacked civilian Hezbollah members who are part of the Lebanese parliament. But a part of that was also, a part of that was to cause as much chaos as possible so that there was no retaliation when they turned around and actually did unlimited bombing campaigns in southern Lebanon as well.
And after Hezbollah had global support in a way that the way they've gone after Hamas in Gaza is increasingly making Israel a global pariah. Norman, your response?
I agree with you completely, but there were two reasons for that. The first one is that the Hamas has systematically hidden behind civilians and in tunnels underneath civilian centers.
Are we having
a let Norman respond.
Monologue?
Norman.
With all due respect to you, Piers, I think there's a misunderstanding about what's been happening since October 7th. Once October 7th happened, it was a crisis for Israel. About that, there's no dispute. But it was also viewed, as the cliche had it, it was also an opportunity. And the opportunity was to once and for all solve the Gaza question. Now, from day one, it was perfectly obvious that the goal of Israel was to solve the Gaza question through three methods. One, ethnic cleansing. Two, make Gaza unlivable. And three, mass killing, mass death and destruction. Now, if you look at it from that vantage point, the operation has been hugely successful. I don't know why, with all due regard, and I do respect you, I don't know why you keep saying it's been unsuccessful. They've destroyed about 90% of the housing in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the hospitals in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the universities in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the arable land in Gaza. Gaza won't be habitable anytime in the next 2 decades, according to the best estimations by the international community.
I'm from Lebanon. My aunt's apartment was destroyed. She's a civilian, 40 years old. She had to go back to the mountains to live with my grandma. She doesn't have any money to fix the apartment, and there are no repercussions for what happened. It's just like she's supposed to cope with it and shut her mouth. So disappointing. Yeah. And the entire world turns around and like celebrates those actions, which is so shocking to me. They just don't think anyone else is a human being. What? The U.S. promised the PLO that they would ensure the safety of the Beirut civilians in return for them leaving the city. Right after the IDF facilitated the massacres of multiple Palestinian refugee camps, over 1,300 civilians were killed by the LF. The U.S. was guilty then, just as guilty now. I think you got timed out by the auto modding because you kept spamming, or maybe you wrote something too long. It was Fossabot. Yeah. Also, surprisingly, I never thought I would say this, but yes, I think the number Norm arrived at are undercounted. The arable land is I think I might be wrong about this, but I think the arable land destroyed is like even larger than 70%. I thought it was 90% of arable land that has been destroyed. Like it is virtually impossible for there to be any sort of agricultural output in Gaza. Yeah, it's not even 70, it's 90 or 95%.
National organizations, the World Bank, the...
Personally, I'd like to hear from Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. I appreciated his balanced takes. restore the public discourse, and peace will follow. See, under normal circumstances, like that is a perfect demonstration of someone being so hyperbolic that obviously they're being sarcastic. Okay? Because there is not a single ultra Zionists don't think Rabbi Shmuley is a good advocate for Israel. Okay? Why do you think they shelved him? That right there is such a stupid statement that he doesn't have to slap a /S on it. Rabbi Shmuley is perhaps Hamas's bravest soldier. A lot of you don't understand this. I had the vision from the jump, okay? Rabbi Shmuley was the greatest anti-Zionism vehicle of all time. A person that was so repulsive in everything he does that people that have been lifelong supporters of Israel would listen to him talk for literally more than 30 seconds and go, I must dismantle the Zionist entity. People were saying the Shahada and joining the ranks of the Al-Qassam brigades after hearing Rabbi Shmuley speak. Like 30, not even 30, 56-year-old Barbaras and Deborahs were literally going, as a lifelong Christian, and I listen to this rabbi speak and I realize, inshallah, we must win one day. Glory to all the martyrs. We are, glory to all the martyrs. Inshallah, the Zionist entity will be dismantled. It's like you said, I think Shmuley literally played a role in radicalizing Piers in the opposite direction. Yes. There has been no loyal servant of Hamas as loyal as or as consistent as Rabbi Shmuley.
And International Monetary Fund, UNCTAD, and so forth. It's been hugely successful. Where we're at now is the final phase. And the final phase is why all the rats, like the leadership in the UK right now, and the French and the Canadians, they're trying to jump off the sinking ship because they know exactly what Israel has in mind. We're now at the apocalypse, the final phase. Mr. Morris has written a lot about 1948 in Israel. And in fact, what's happening now is very similar to what happened in October 1948. If you read his books, which I have, you see a massive escalation of atrocities during the 1948 war as they're trying to finish the job. And now Israel is trying to finish the job. If you read your own Financial Times, it described very beautifully what this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was about. They were going to set up 2 or 3 distribution points in the south of Gaza. And then everybody from the north and the middle of Gaza would have to go to the south in order to get food or water or medicine. And then when everybody was congregated in the south, what do you think is going to happen? Exactly what happened in October 1948. There were going to be the massacres. You know what they were going to say.
Can I say something?
There was rioting. There was rioting at the food distribution centers. The IDF felt afraid. And then it started to fire. And then they hoped
Piers,
in one fell swoop they could send the whole population over the border into Egypt.
He likes to lecture.
It's perfectly obvious what Israel is doing now. It's the last stage, or I should say, it's the final stage of the final solution. And now some of the Western leaders don't want to have to dirty their hands with it. So suddenly people like Lamy are discovering that it's intolerable, the situation in Gaza. Guess what?
Can I say something?
God, I love Norm so much. I wouldn't change a single damn thing about him. the way he carries himself, how stubborn he is, how proud he is. That's exactly what you need. When I found out about Norm Finkelstein decades ago as this like incredibly stubborn man who had been, not decades ago, but like a decade ago, as this incredibly stubborn man who had been, I think it was like right after he got blackballed, like the Allen, was it? I don't remember exactly when it was, but I remember him taking the largest hit of his career from the Dersh, Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, after Norm correctly called out, after Norm Finkelstein correctly called out the Dersh for plagiarizing someone else's material that had made up shit about the Palestinians. He was right to call him out for plagiarizing, and Alan Dershowitz went on to blackball him from every academic institution.
Intolerable since October 8th.
Okay, final word, very briefly, to you, Benny.
As far as I've understood, that firstly, at the moment, there's discussions of a prisoner exchange and a ceasefire between Israel and the Hamas, which may work out and give the Hamas a breathing space of 60 days at least in which to reorganize and whatever. But the Israeli military plan, as far as it's been published, is to take over essentially 75% and maybe by the end 100% of the Gaza Strip and root out the Hamas, kill the Hamas people or get them to surrender and leave the territory, and to supply the Palestinian population in 3 centers, not just in the south, but also in the north, with humanitarian aid, if the Hamas will allow it to come through, because the Hamas have been taking most of the humanitarian aid
Benny.
and then
Benny.
The problem is Hamas is but a name, okay? For Israel, the problem is not the name Hamas. For Israel, the problem is resistance against occupation, militant resistance against the occupation. So, of course, reasonable people, even within the Nazi forces of the Israeli occupying force, recognize that there is no military solution to Hamas. Because as long as the occupation exists, then of course there is going to be resistance to said occupation, whether it's called Hamas or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Okay? Call it Sama. Okay? Don't call it Hamas. Call it Samah. Whatever. It's gonna exist. Because you can't occupy people for 77 years. Of course people are going to want freedom. And Israel understands that, right? Israel understands that. That's why they want to do ethnic cleansing. That's why they want to completely ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. Because they understand that as long as there are Arabs there, as long as there are Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, they are going to understandably resist against Israel. Okay? They have the moral right and responsibility to resist against Israel. They have the legal right and responsibility to resist against the Israeli occupation. Yeah, I saw this. I saw Laura predicting 2020 was the summer of love. 2025 will be the summer of jihad. You'll see. Islam is cracking up. We got women talking back. We got people playing stringed instruments. It's the end of days. Inshallah, one day, 2025 will be the summer of jihad, yeah. What is this? I don't know. Nick Pollum being Nick Pollum. Here are my friends Hasan and Asmongold. I'm curious, if you had to vote for either of them as president, who'd you vote for and why? All circumstances permitting, of course. I hate the two-party system. Nick Pollum is going to realize that, he's farming right now, but he's going to realize that a lot more people in his fan base love Asmongold. Yeah, he's just farming. Yeah. Laura Loomer is not wrong. It is Jihad Summer. Jihad Summer is White Boy Summer. His fan base is majority Euro cucks. Your reaction to the Charlie debate going viral?
To the UK, right? We totally agree.
I think that all religious.
Oh yeah, I responded to her too. Said you did great. Take your shirt off. Are you dead ass? I used to watch him and everyone say they hate you when you were brought up. I mean, she cooked them. I think the funnier the funnier response I had was that every time she cooked Charlie harder. Have you seen Four Lines? Yes, I love Four Lines.
And then selling it to merchants, and then selling it to merchants, and making money with which they can hire new fighters. That's what the Hamas is doing
but the truth is,
with the humanitarian aid.
Okay, Benny, the truth is, when you launch a 3-month blockade of aid going in, when you know kids are starving, it's unconscionable. I don't care what you try and dress it.
That's incorrect. There was a lot of food.
Oh my God, Benny. Oh, he's just... Benny Morris is a fantastic example of like the cancerous nature of fascist thought, where you can have like an academic pedigree, but all of that falls apart the moment that your perspective is just so significantly influenced by death and destruction. Like he is, I'm certain, or at least everything I've seen of his work, it's decent. Not like his new shit, and certainly nothing about like his opinions overall. But it's crazy that like you can be a major historian, okay, a game-changing historian in Israel, and also simultaneously be the type of dude that says like, well, you can't trust a Syrian to be a part of the United Nations, like insanely racist. Never ask a woman about her age, a man about his salary, and Israel about its evidence. When did Piers do a 180 on Gaza? Right here.
You and I
on I believe this was on May 20th. Here, this is when he officially he went from soft launching his support for Hamas to hard launching it.
Listen, you and I have talked about this war in Gaza for ever since it started, this phase of the 75-year conflict. And I have resisted going as far as you have done in your criticism of the Israeli government. I resist no more. I think we've reached common ground about what we view is happening and has been happening through this period of this blockade, which frankly is just starvation of the people there, including so many innocent young women and children. And I think that the incessant bombing and killing, and we don't know how many civilians have been killed, but it is on a daily basis. It looks like hundreds of people every day, with no apparent attempt, it seems to me, to have any real plan for how this ends or what happens when it ends, other than if you look at what Smodrich has been saying, probably the most right-wing member of a very right-wing government, he is talking in a genocidal language about kicking all the Palestinians out.
So I think you and I have reached a place in the last few weeks where we are in agreement. But my question for you, Mehdi, is how does this end?
I don't know the answer to that question, Piers, and I'm glad we're in agreement. I wish we weren't. Actually, I wish I had been wrong and you were right. I wish that a year ago when I said on your show, you said, well, if it's not about the hostages, what's it about? And I said, it's about depopulating Gaza. It's about conquering Gaza. I wish I'd been wrong. But as you said, Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister...
Yeah, I mean, I have a solution. Intifada revolution. Okay. All jokes aside, I mean, I have a solution. I think dissolve the apartheid. Like literally. One phone call from the American administration. Consistently continue applying pressure if you're outside of the administration to your politicians, to members of the media, to keep up the focus and keep up the pressure. And keep up the attention to Israel's Nazi regime, to Israel's Nazi Holocaust. And then get the American government to move, or at least like if you're in Europe, you have a better opportunity to get your government to move in that direction, to decouple from Israel, to apply sanctions to Israel, pressure the European Union to apply sanctions to Israel, which then will put Europe and European leaders at odds with the American foreign policy and make America's allegiance to Israel more costly. Okay? And then eventually cause the United States of America to make that final phone call where it's like, it's done. If there was true justice in the world, of course, do you think this can stop without military intervention? Yes, it will most likely stop without military intervention. Yes, I do. Because it's if something can be stopped with one phone call, then it'll be stopped with one phone call. Because there is no military intervention without the United States go-ahead. And the United States is not going to say, go and invade, a coalition of the willing, go and invade Tel Aviv. They're going to just make the phone call and get Israel to stop before that comes to fruition. It's that simple. Chinese intervention, though, dude. Okay. Chinese intervention is less likely than America invading Tel Aviv. Okay, that's how unlikely it is. Get out of here, dude. Like, goddamn, I glaze China for the good things. Okay, China's foreign policy against America is great. Okay, they do all the right things. Mostly focusing on trade, mostly focusing on development, mostly focusing on generating goodwill. But China, when it comes to directly standing in opposition to the United States in a matter that would be considered interventionist, fuck no, they don't do shit. They don't even use interventionist policies in their own backyard in like the Philippines or whatever, when they should be doing that. China is unimaginably non-interventionist, or when they do intervene in the affairs, they usually side with the state repression. Okay? Whether it be Indonesia or Myanmar, China will always side with the repressive forces of the state. Okay? Because they value stability within their neighbors more than anything else. Okay? No, I'm not talking about like invading Vietnam, Chad. I'm talking like contemporary China. Okay? And even if you were to like bring up the Korean War, for example, that's a very different time in China, in Chinese history. We're not talking about China under Mao. We're talking about China now. Okay? If you think China under Mao and China now are following the same vision, you're wrong. Okay? If Mao was alive, then yes, you would be seeing a very different. Well, if he was alive, he'd be really old. But if Mao was still alive, you'd be speaking Chinese right now. Okay? China really some bag chasers on my granny. Aslında Piers Morgan. This is a Turkish chatter. I think. But they are, yes, you are correct, chatter. China really be some bag chasers on my life.
In the Israeli government said this week, we are there to conquer, cleanse, and remain. Those are his words. We are disassembling Gaza, he said. We are leaving it as piles of rubble. He says we're doing something that no one's done in the world.
Do you think the U.S. will make the phone call or rather die with Israel? No, there will come a point when the phone call will be made. That's going to happen eventually. Because, as I've said with Russia as well, all wars end up with treaties, okay? There will come a day when that call comes. I just wish it would have come a year ago.
Before he bragged out loud and he said, yes, the Gazans will have to leave. So all of those things are stuff some of us were saying last year. I wish we hadn't been vindicated in this horrific way. The killing is ongoing. The starvation is ongoing. And look, I do hope that a dam is bursting. You mentioned the genocide word. Shmuel Lederman, who is an Israeli researcher of genocide, spent much of 2024 saying it's not a genocide, it's not a genocide. He was interviewed by a Dutch newspaper last week. He said, I've changed my position. It is a genocide. He said, in my field, there's a consensus among genocide scholars that it's a genocide. In fact, that Dutch newspaper interviewed 7 leading scholars of genocide. Every single one said, we think what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. In fact, this week, Piers, you have an Israeli former general, Yair Golan, saying a sane country does not attack civilians, does not kill babies as a hobby and does not expel civilian populations. That is Yair Golan, the former deputy chief of the Israeli military, prominent Israeli politician. He was a hero on October the 7th.
He's so mad. Stay mad, you Nazi.
Fought Hamas himself on October the 7th. This is what he said this week.
Yeah. Yair Golan is Hamas. Ehud Olmert is Hamas. Go to Gaza. Why don't you go to Gaza? If you like Hamas so much, you have become Hamas. Go to Gaza.